A massive data breach that kind of wasn't. How data brokers assisted in a political assassination, Meta takes more steps to get worse, and more. Welcome to Surveillance Report 230, where we are dedicated to keeping you private and secure with the latest news from the past week. I am Nathan from The New Oil.
And I'm Henry from Techlore.
Our sponsor this week is Proton Pass. This is a password manager built by the same team behind Proton Mail and Proton VPN. So if you like those products and you haven't checked them out, the password manager, you definitely should. The big feature they want us to highlight is the Hide My Email feature, which is powered by Simple Login. So for those who don't know, this lets you generate random email addresses in a very user-friendly way right there in the password manager so that you can keep your real email address private. And this helps manage spam and help defend against data breaches, which we will discuss in depth this week. This is very, very similar to Apple's Hide My Email feature, but again, powered by Simple Login. So if you've been using Simple Login, this is very similar. It just integrates right in with the password manager. Some other really cool features, there is a dark web monitor to alert you if any of your information shows up in any data breaches. The password manager comes with an integrated two-factor authenticator for TOTP codes. That's the one where it just automatically refreshes every 30 seconds. So very convenient to have that all in one place. If you're going to go that route, make sure that you are definitely securing your password manager. I mean, you should always secure your password manager. It's really important, but that creates a single point of failure. So definitely make sure you're using like hardware tokens and really secure two-factor methods for that. It securely syncs across all your devices. This is, of course, backed by Swiss privacy laws, and Proton has no venture capital, so they are only answering to the users, and they are incentivized to bring out the features and the things that you guys want, not what the investors want, because there are no investors. The premium plan starts at just $2.99 a month right now with our link, which is proton.me/surveillance report. Thank you so much to Proton for sponsoring this video, helping us all stay a little bit more private online, and keeping the podcast going. Our highlight story this week is a little bit contrarian. So you guys may have heard about this big 16 billion credential data leak going around that is the biggest data breach of all time. And just to clarify, this comes from multiple different sources. I saw some people saying like, but there's only 8 or 9 billion people on the planet, 16 billion credentials. So, you know, I'm assuming all of us have a login on more than one site. So that would be 2 different sets of credentials, not 16 billion people. But this is actually not a new data breach, according to Bleeping Computer. News broke today about one of the largest data breaches in history, sparking wide media coverage filled with warnings and fear-mongering. However, it appears to just be a compilation of previously leaked credentials stolen by info stealers, exposed in data breaches, and via credential stuffing attacks. This is not a new data breach or a breach at all, and the websites involved were not recently compromised to steal their credentials. Instead, these stolen credentials were likely circulating for some time, if not for years. It was then collected by a cybersecurity firm, researchers, or other threat actors and repackaged into a database that was exposed on the internet. Quick pause there. That's what happened. Just as a quick refresher, for those who don't know, a lot of the times, criminals aren't targeting anyone specifically. There's a distinct difference between a targeted attack and just regular threat actors out there. Up until recently, what we've seen the most of is cybercriminals will attack a company. They'll attack somebody like Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, and they will break into those servers. And then when they get into those servers, you get caught up in it because you have an account there. Maybe not you watching this. I know you guys always love to leave comments about how you haven't had Facebook since, 1990 and you're proud of it. But most people, when you have an account there, it gets caught up in the breach, and that's how your stuff gets out there. They're not targeting you specifically. They're targeting a service you use, and you are collateral damage. According to Bleeping Computer, we are also seeing, and I don't know if this is overtaking that traditional method of data breach. My money would say probably not, but we are seeing a rise in what's called info stealers. The way these work is it's basically like a keylogger. It's malware that you download to your computer, and it scans your computer for any password files, especially if you're one of those people who like, I have a spreadsheet on my computer called passwords. For the record, I did that before I knew better, but go check out Proton Pass. That's not good. Password managers will store those in a very secure way that is much more difficult to access. But anyways, they'll look for anything they can. They'll look for stored passwords, browser data. They'll look for session cookies. We're going to talk about that in a second. But they look for things that are of value, and then they send it back to whoever planted that thing there. The way these are typically getting around nowadays is, at least from what I gather reading these articles, the way they're spreading these days is through really sketchy, I don't want to revive this debate, but piracy. If you're not being careful what you pirate and you're running things at an administrative privilege, that could include malware. Or a lot of the time, I'm sure you guys have seen this. So when I upgraded to Windows 11, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 stopped working. So I went online to see if there's a workaround, because a lot of the time you can just, check a compatibility mode or edit something in a file. But a lot of them were like, oh, go download this thing from like mediafire.com. And it's like, I don't know what this is. I don't know who this is. I don't know where this comes from. It's not coming from a website that I trust. Like, I'm not putting this on my computer. But a lot of people are just like, oh, okay, this person says it works. And they go and they download it and they run it. And now it has malware. This is how this kind of stuff is spreading. And that's one of the reasons we're always telling you guys to like, be careful what you download and get it from trusted sources. The reason I put that analysis in the middle. Continuing towards the rest of the article, it says the info stealer problem has gotten so bad and pervasive that compromised credentials have become one of the most common ways for threat actors to breach networks. The most important step to protect yourself is to adopt and maintain good cybersecurity habits you should already be following. So for example, they say that if you think you're infected, you can use a reputable malware scanner like Malwarebytes or Bitdefender. We talked about this in the Q&A. The built-in stuff for Mac and Windows like Defender and XProtect, they're pretty good, but if you think you're already infected, you might need something a little bit more hardcore. Use strong, unique passwords and two-factor authentication. Check your passwords on Have I Been Pwned, or a lot of password managers like Bitwarden and probably Proton come with a built-in checker, which just pings Have I Been Pwned, so it's just an easier way to do that. And if you think you may have been compromised, go ahead and change the password. It's not a big deal. The article didn't say this one, but my recommendation, going back to what I said earlier, don't stay logged in. We've talked at length, I think even in last week's episode, we talked about how info stealers can steal session cookies. So if you're signed into your bank, and you check the little box that says keep me signed in, and then you get an info stealer, it's going to check your browser for, among other things, session cookies. And if it finds a session cookie and says, oh, you're logged in, it's going to swipe that and send it back. And then all they have to do is drop it into their browser, refresh the page, and now they're signed in as you because that's a valid session cookie. I have really become a firm believer these days in not staying signed into anything because it's defense in depth. Do I go around downloading these random things in the YouTube description just to make my game work? No. Do I go around pirating stuff? No. But you never know what'll happen. And if I don't keep those session cookies on there, that's another layer of defense where now there's nothing for them to steal from my browser. Also, don't use the browser password manager. A dedicated password manager is more secure.
Definitely a lot of good stuff to think about there. And I think there's just so many lessons in this story from how to read news side of things and how to, like Nate was saying, kind of parse through what this actually means. How is there 16 billion credentials versus accounts versus people? I think it's also a big lesson in that changing passwords when it's caught in a data breach and also using unique passwords for everything is probably the number one thing that anyone can do for their privacy and security. Hands down. I can't think of one more impactful thing you could do than that, to be honest. Just because if you're just using the same credentials for everything online, then any data breach can literally expose your entire digital life, right? If you're using the same password for email, which is what you're using for your banks, which is what you're using for your messengers that are end-to-end encrypted, you're just failing miserably with your privacy and security. And that's like the number one thing. And fortunately, it's super easy to do nowadays. It wasn't that long ago that there weren't like a huge amount of trusted password managers with the exception of KeePass. And now there are lots of good ones. Of course, there's Proton who sponsors, this episode. But even besides Proton we have Bitwarden, and we even have other things like 1Password that have really, built up their reputation. And I think that it's really cool to see a space where it's at. And now these tools are also integrated with aliasing as well, which is like another really important thing to help prevent these data breaches. So take advantage of the tools. They weren't always this nice even 5 years ago. I just had a conversation with someone in person about this a few days ago. We're a bit spoiled, and it's easy to see all the negativity in the news because privacy and security is pretty negative overall. Like a lot of the news is stuff like this. But we didn't have aliasing services. If you told me 5 years ago there was a way to somehow have a unique email for literally every account I have that still ended up in my regular email inbox with no difference to convenience, I wouldn't have believed you. And the fact that's just a normal thing nowadays that even Apple has rolled out now is just crazy. So I think we've come a long way, and just use the tools. They'll keep you safe, and then your life doesn't have to revolve around this.
I just wanted to add on to what you're saying. You were talking about like not reusing passwords and how if somebody gets one, now they're into your whole life. I run into a lot of people who are like, oh, I only have like one password or like a couple of passwords, but it's like a really strong password. And we covered a story recently how back in 2019, Facebook was storing passwords in plain text. Facebook, a company that can afford to do it right. Really, really, really quick, for those who don't know, when you make a password, a company is supposed to store an encrypted version of it called a hash. And that way they never have your actual plain text password, and it makes it harder for cyber criminals when they do those data breaches I talked about where they attack the company. Not impossible, but it's way harder for them to figure out your actual password. If Facebook was storing it in plain text, and again, they have the money to do this right and hire good engineers, they just choose not to. All it takes is one company doing that or using a poor hashing algorithm that's easily broken, which we also cover those a lot on this podcast, and now your password's out there everywhere. So I don't care if you have the world's strongest password. If you're using one password everywhere, you are putting yourself at risk, point blank. Just to add on to what you were saying about aliasing, yeah, when I got into privacy, Simple Login and Addy, I think were like just entering the scene or maybe hadn't even entered the scene yet. And some of you guys may remember Michael Basil used to recommend this tool called Abind Blur. It worked, but it was really not user-friendly. And the email, because you had to use it in a mobile app, and the email addresses it generated were like random gibberish at opaque, but it was opayq.com. So like anytime I tried to use it, I remember this actually, I went to go apply for my first apartment, like my first apartment by myself. And they're like, oh, what's your email address? I'm like, yeah, it's like 068FGY at opaque.com. And it's spelled opaque. And now like I have seen my wife, and when people are like, oh, what's your email address? She's like, oh, 1 second, and generates one on the spot in the app and goes, yeah, it's like simple_sunrise86 at simplelogin.com. And it's so easy and so user-friendly. I know we've already gone on this rant in the past. There's still a lot of room to go. Things can always get better. But like we have come such a long way, and privacy has become so, in a lot of ways, a lot of the things we talk about are so user-friendly and so stable, and just, yeah, it's worth taking a moment to pause and appreciate that.
My least favorite part of doing sponsored stuff, to be honest, it's that like genuinely, like the sponsors that I take on, I genuinely actually believe in. It's not just random crap that I just am like saying. So like Proton Pass, I genuinely use Proton Pass. But also we have other sponsors that, you know, on the Techlore side of things. And I always get concerned making content because I got really excited with Simple Login. So I remember when I discovered Simple Login, there was almost no coverage for Simple Login. No one talked about it. It was a brand new concept to me. And I made that video and I was like, I think people are going to think this is sponsored. It was like so overwhelmingly positive. I'm like, you guys have to use this. Like this literally changed my entire privacy life. This one service. And I feel like when you see YouTube content like that, it's like, oh, this is obviously sponsored. But like sometimes it's just that, you know, freaking good. That was my reaction when Simple Login came out.
When I make content like that on my YouTube channel, I go out of my way to say like it wasn't sponsored, or like I tell people, I'm like, this wasn't sponsored. They didn't send me a demo unit. And you know, there's always going to be the people that are like, oh, you're just saying that. You can't convince those people, whatever. And I tell people, like when I did my Nitro Key video, I'm like, hey, look, they sent me a demo unit. I requested it. I'm sending it back when I'm done. But you know, I try to be as transparent as possible.
I mean, it's all you can do. Yeah, well now, I guess, we don't normally have a highlight/feature that is a data breach in a way, even though this one kind of wasn't. But now we're going to go into the data breaches, and we're going to start with Zoomcar, who has disclosed a security breach impacting 8.4 million users. Zoomcar, if you don't know, is an Indian peer-to-peer car-sharing marketplace that connects car owners with renters across emerging markets in Asia. This incident was detected on June 9th, and it impacted full names, phone numbers, car registration numbers, home addresses, and email addresses. Zoomcar says there is no evidence of exposing users' financial information, plain text passwords, or any other sensitive data that could lead to the identification of individuals. The company underlined that it is still evaluating all the exact scope and potential impact of the security incident. This is a side note, but they also had another data breach in 2018.
Hacker steals 1 million Cockly user records in webmail data breach. So for those who don't know, Cock.li is a German-based free webmail hosting provider with privacy-focused ethos and lax moderation policies run by a single operator known as Vincent Carfield since 2013. They published a statement on their website yesterday confirming the breach and the viability of the threat actor's claims because somebody posted this online saying, we hacked your stuff. The email service confirmed that the following information has been exposed for over 1 million user accounts. Email address, first and last login timestamps, failed login attempts and count, language, a serialized blob of round cube settings and email signature, contact names for just over 10,000 accounts, contact email addresses for just over 10,000 accounts, vCard for the same number, and comments for the same number. The service's announcement yesterday clarifies that account passwords, email content, and IP addresses were not compromised, as these were not present in the stolen database. For everyone else who used the service since 2016, it is recommended to reset their account passwords. Cockly says they believe the data was stolen using an old Roundcube SQL injection tracked as CVE 2021-whatever. The breach comes as Cockly recently analyzed the RCE flaw in Roundcube CV 2025, which is believed to be actively exploited in their attacks. Their analysis led them to remove the software from their platform in June.
Scania has confirmed an insurance claim data breach in extortion attempt. So this is a major Swedish manufacturer of heavy trucks, buses, and industrial and marine engines, and they're a member of the Volkswagen Group. Insurance claim documents are likely to contain personal and possibly sensitive financial or medical data, so the incident could have a significant impact on those affected. At the time, the number of exposed individuals remains undefined. There also is a healthcare SaaS firm who says a data breach impacts 5.4 million patients. They're called EpiSource. And this is an American healthcare service that provides risk adjustment, medical coding, data analytics, and technology solutions to health plans and providers. They help insurers optimize payments and compliance in government programs like Medicare Advantage. So the range of this data breach, which affected a little over 5 million people, is between January 27th and February 6th. Unfortunately, if you were in that range, this included full names, physical and email addresses, phone numbers, insurance plan information, Medicaid IDs and information, medical record details, date of births, and social security numbers, and everything about pretty much any care that you got as well. So pretty much everything. The statement underlines that no banking or payment card information has been exposed.
Aflac discloses a data breach amidst Scattered Spider insurance attacks. So just to clarify, this is not being attributed to Scattered Spider, which is the name given to this hacking group. The article's just noting a lot of other, I'm pretty sure we just covered two of them. A lot of other insurance companies are getting hacked lately. So this might be related. But for those who don't know, Aflac is short for American Family Life Assurance Company. They are the largest supplemental insurance provider in the US and a Fortune 500 company that provides insurance services to millions of customers in the US and Japan. These documents contain a wide range of sensitive information relating to customers, beneficiaries, employees, agents, and other individuals, ranging from claims and health information to social security numbers and or other personal information. So that's literally it as far as useful information. We don't know exactly what was breached, how many people, when it happened, etc. Our last breach is a quick update from Krispy Kreme. They said that their data breach from November impacted over 160,000 people. The company didn't reveal what data was exposed in the incident, but in a separate filing with the Massachusetts Attorney General, they disclosed that stolen documents contain affected individuals' social security numbers, financial account information, and driver's license information.
Now we're going to go into the company news, and we're going to start with WhatsApp. They are going to introduce ads in their app. The promotions will appear only in an area of the app called Updates, which is used by around 1.5 billion people a day. WhatsApp will collect some data on users to target the ads, such as location and a device's default language, but it will not touch the contents of messages or whom users speak with. The company added that it had no plans to place ads in chats and personal messages. The article notes that Facebook earlier promised no ads when buying WhatsApp to begin with. This time, WhatsApp braced for pushback, saying any data sharing with other Meta-owned apps for ad targeting was optional. Users can choose to link their WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook accounts, so ads on WhatsApp can be based on data collected from those platforms.
We're going to circle back to Meta, but first we're going to talk about the markup, who found 4 more states sharing personal health data with big tech. These come from state-run healthcare websites around the country meant to provide a simple way to shop for health insurance. They have been quietly sending visitors sensitive health information to Google and social media companies. The data, including prescription drug names and dosages, was sent by web trackers on state exchanges set up under the Affordable Care Act to help Americans purchase health coverage. The markup and Cal Matters audited the websites of all 19 states that independently operate their own online health exchange. While most of the sites contained advertising trackers of some kind, the markup and Cal Matters found that 4 states exposed visitors sensitive health information. So Nevada was one of them, or Nevada, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it. They have Nevada Health Link, which asks visitors about what prescriptions they use, including the names and dosages of the drugs, to help them find their best options for health insurance. As visitors answered the questions, the responses were sent to LinkedIn and Snapchat. On the other side of the country, Maine's exchange, CoverMe.gov, sent information on drug prescription and dosage to Google through an analytics tool. It also sent the names of doctors and hospitals that people had previously visited. Rhode Island's exchange, HealthSource RI, sent prescription information, dosages, and doctors' names to Google. Massachusetts Health Connector told LinkedIn whether visitors said they were pregnant, blind, or disabled. After being contacted by the markup and Cal Matters, Nevada's Health Exchange stopped sending visitor data to Snapchat, and Massachusetts stopped sending data to LinkedIn. Additionally, the markup and Cal Matters found that Nevada stopped sending data to LinkedIn in early May as they were testing, they being markup and Cal Matters. And then just kind of a summary, when they contacted the states directly and asked about it, 3 of the states washed their hands of it. 2 said, nuh-uh. Basically, they said, no, we don't send data, even though they obviously found that it did. One of them also just kind of said well, there's a third-party company that manages this, talk to them.
And now we're going to go to Meta, and I'll briefly just round out Meta. There's a longer story and a short one, and the short one is actually positive news for Meta standards. The bad news first. So Meta has invented a new way to humiliate users with feed of people's chats with AI. Meta has an AI app, which is their competitor to the ChatGPT app, and it's posting users' conversations on a public Discover page where anyone can see the things that users are asking Meta's chatbot to make for them. This is via the Discover tab. This includes various innocuous image and video generations that have become completely inescapable on all of Meta's platforms. Things like egg with one eye made of black and gold. Adorable Maltese dog becomes a heroic lifeguard. 1 second for God to step into your mind. But it also includes entire chatbot conversations where users are seemingly unknowingly leaking a mix of embarrassing, personal, and sensitive details about their lives onto a public platform. In almost all cases, 404 Media was able to trivially tie these chats to actual real people because the app uses your Instagram or Facebook account as your login. In several minutes last week, this is a quote, I saved a series of these chats into a Slack channel I created and called Insane Meta AI. These included entire conversations about my current medical condition, which I could tie back to a real human being with one click, details about someone's life insurance plan. At a point in time with a cerebral palsy, do you start to lose the use of your legs? Because that's what it's feeling like, so that's what I'm worried about. That's a quote from the chatbot. There's details about a situationship gone wrong after a woman did not like a gift. There's an older disabled man wondering whether he could find and afford a young wife in Medellin, Colombia on his salary. They said, I'm at the stage in my life where I want to find a young woman to care for me and cook for me. I just want to relax. I'm disabled and need a wheelchair. I'm severely overweight and suffer from fibromyalgia and asthma. I'm 5'9", 280 pounds, but I think a good young woman who keeps me company could help me lose the weight. So what counties do younger women like older white men? That's another one. I need details. I am 66 and single. I'm from Iowa and I'm open to moving to a new country if I can find a younger woman. It says, my boyfriend tells me to not be so sensitive. Does that affect him being a feminist? Others are even crazier and include people asking what cream or ointment can be used to soothe a bad scarring reaction on scrotum sac caused by shaving razor. Create a letter pleasing Judge Bauer to not sentence me to death over the murder of 2 people. Possibly a joke. Someone asking if their sister, a vice president at a company that has not paid its corporate taxes in 12 years, could be liable for that. Audio of a person talking about how they are homeless, and someone asking for help with their cancer diagnosis, someone discussing being newly sexually interested in trans people, etc. There have also been questions about discussions of crimes committed, home addresses, and talking to the bot about extramarital affairs. The positive news from Facebook is they are rolling out support for passkeys on Android and iOS. And that's coming in the coming months.
So this last one is really short. Apparently, the Washington Post email system was hacked and journalists' accounts were compromised. Internal sources told the Wall Street Journal that the attack targeted journalists writing on national security and economic policy topics, as well as some who write about China. The Washington Post has not publicly shared any details about the attack. On that note, we'll move into research. This first story is really interesting and might be an update. So the headline says, researchers create world's first completely verifiable random number generator. Researchers have built a breakthrough random number generator that solves a critical problem. For the first time, every step of creating random numbers can be independently verified and audited, with quantum physics guaranteeing the numbers are truly unpredictable. The new system, developed by teams at the University of Colorado Boulder and the National Institute of Standards and Technology, uses quantum entanglement to guarantee unpredictability. The setup creates pairs of photons that share quantum properties, then sends them to measurement stations 110 meters apart. When the researchers measure each photon's properties, quantum mechanics ensures the results are fundamentally random and cannot be influenced by any classical communication between the stations. The team created a system called Twine that distributes the random number generation process across multiple independent parties, with each step recorded in tamper-proof digital ledgers called hash chains. This means no single organization controls the entire process, and anyone can verify that the proper procedures were followed. During a 40-day demonstration, the system successfully generated random numbers in 7,434 of 7,454 attempts, a 99.7% success rate. Each successful run produced 512 random bits with mathematical certainty of randomness bounded by an error rate of 2 to the negative 64th, an extraordinarily high level of confidence. If you're like me and you're like, hold on, where's that last 3%? What am I missing? Someone in the comments said, it looks like it was mainly failures to generate a result within a predetermined time. Some of the failures were due to cryostat hardware failures. A fridge went out during an NIST campus closure. Some were due to fiber plus interferometer polarization drifts, and so on. It also appears that perhaps a few of the misses are due to latencies in the time taggers to record a common time base. So basically, it might just be like a hardware failure to get the results within a certain time window or some kind of thing.
Think twice before you click unsubscribe. So this is referring to emails, the unsubscribe button. So DNS Filter has found that 1 in every 644 clicks on unsubscribe links that say click here to unsubscribe leads users to potentially malicious websites. The lowest risk is that bad actors who have acquired your email are testing to see if it is a live one. Clicking on that tells attackers you're real, and then they will send you more spam. Another risk is that they will send you to a fake but authentic looking web page where they try to trick you into providing login credentials, aka it's a phishing website. All three experts say that they're usually comfortable using list unsubscribe headers, the built-in hyperlinked buttons maintained by many email service providers and positioned in the heading of emails that give users an easy way to opt out of emails. These are generally safer than clicking on unsubscribe links in the body of emails, they say, because they don't take you out to the web. If that hyperlinked list unsubscribe header option isn't available or the sender of the email looks shady, the easiest fix is to mark the unwanted email as spam and move on. Still annoyed? Set up a filter for emails from the sender in question that automatically diverts them to your spam box.
That'll take us into politics. Let's talk about Minnesota. For those who don't know, 2 politicians, state-level politicians, were shot in Minnesota. One of them unfortunately passed away. I believe the spouses were also shot, and I believe in that household, both spouses passed away. So this was a suspect, quote unquote, Vance Bolter, age 57, who is accused of shooting Minnesota Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark Hortman, in their home on Saturday. The couple died from their injuries. Authorities claim the suspect also shot State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette Hoffman, in their home earlier that night. The pair are currently recovering. Here's the privacy part of the story. According to an FBI affidavit, police searched the SUV believed to be the suspects and found notebooks that included handwritten lists of more than 45 Minnesota state and federal public officials, including Representative Hortman's, whose home address was written next to her name. According to the same affidavit, one notebook also listed 11 mainstream search platforms for finding people's home addresses and other personal information, such as phone numbers and relatives. For many in the general public, as well as in politics, Saturday's violent crime spree brings new urgency to the long-standing question of how to protect sensitive personal data online. And this is a quote from Evan Greer, who is the deputy director of Fight for the Future. These are not the first murders that have been abetted by the data broker industry, but most of the previous targets were relatively unknown victims of stalking and abuse. Lawmakers need to act before they have more blood on their hands.
New U.S. visa rules will force foreign students to unlock social media profiles. So foreign students will be required to unlock their social media profiles to allow U.S. diplomats to review their online activity before receiving educational and exchange visas. Those who fail to do so will be suspected of hiding that activity, and the new guidance unveiled by the State Department on Wednesday directs U.S. diplomats to conduct an online presence review to look for any indications of hostility towards the citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles of the U.S. This is directed for the visas in the F, M, and J categories, which refer to academic and vocational education. And Reuters claimed in their podcast episode from 6/19 that lack of social media presence will also be a red flag.
Over to Austria, where we have some less pleasant news. The Austrian government agrees on a plan to allow monitoring of secure messaging. So quoting the article, because Austria lacks a legal framework for monitoring messaging services like WhatsApp, its main domestic intelligence service and police rely on allies with far more sweeping powers like Britain and the US, alerting them to chatter about planned attacks and spyware. I did not include it here, but they specifically name-checked earlier this year or last year, Taylor Swift canceled a couple of concerts in Austria or in that area because they were alerted to plans to attack that concert. The reason they found out about that is because somebody else found out and told Austria and they took appropriate actions. So under this new system, monitoring of a person's messaging must be approved by a 3-judge panel and should only apply to a limited number of cases. The Interior Minister told the news conference it was only expected to be used on 25 to 30 people per year. If it is more than 30, a report must be sent to a parliamentary committee addressing concerns about mass surveillance and the infringement of people's privacy. Quote, the police must have a well-funded suspicion of a possible terror attack, unquote, to monitor a person's messaging under the new system. Once Parliament passes the legislation, a tender process for monitoring technology would be launched and monitoring would begin in 2027.
Social media ban is moving closer in Australia after a tech trial. So this is the world's first social media ban for under 16s. Has moved closer to implementation after a key trial found that checking a user's age is technologically possible and can be integrated into existing services. The results of the trial clear the way for the law to come into force by the end of the year, and the findings also potentially allow other jurisdictions to follow Australia's lead as countries around the world grapple with ways to protect children from harmful content online. The trial tested a range of methods and technologies, including facial scans, inferring a user's age based on their behavior, of course, age verification directly, as well as parental controls. The tests also took into account the way teenagers might try to circumvent age checks. The trial didn't assess public acceptance for any particular technology or the costs involved, and the accuracy of the different methods, for example, the margin of error for facial analysis, was not made available.
California police are illegally sharing license plate data with ICE and Border Patrol. So the LA Police Department and Sheriff's Departments in San Diego and Orange counties searched license plate readings on behalf of Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Protection, according to a database of queries obtained by anti-surveillance group Oakland Privacy. Under a 10-year California measure known as Senate Bill 34, state law enforcement agencies are barred from sharing license plate reader data with out-of-state public agencies or federal entities. The law has been routinely violated. Civil liberties groups in 2023 found that 71 California law enforcement agencies had broken it. Later that year, AG Rob Bonta issued an advisory providing police with specific guidance on how to comply with the law. In addition to detailing the prohibition of out-of-state sharing, Bonta noted that operators of the license plate readers must state the purpose for their use every time they access information. This log is where police searching Riverside County data revealed revealed their cooperation with ICE, often using the term HSI, referring to the agency's Homeland Security Investigations Unit. The term CBP was also used repeatedly. Among the 10 agencies that conducted searches on behalf of ICE, 6 are in LA County, 9 are in Southern California. 2 agencies from Orange and San Diego counties carried out searches on behalf of Customs and Border Protection or the Border Patrol.
So this is really brief. Maybe I'll just take the next couple here. So the UK is fining 23andMe for profoundly damaging breach exposing genetics data. This is $3.12 million over serious security failings that led to damaging data breach in 2023. And this was because it went unnoticed for 5 months between April 2023 and September 2023. And then telecom giant Viasat was breached by China's Salt Typhoon hackers, who are still making the rounds. If you don't remember, these are the people that hacked like the entire cellular internet infrastructure in the US via a backdoor. Viasat, they do satellite broadband services to governments worldwide and aviation, military, energy, and enterprise customers. And last month, the telecom giant told shareholders that it had about 189,000 subscribers in the US, and that was all breached. So the company discovered the Salt Typhoon breach earlier this year and has been working with federal authorities to investigate the attack.
We did not have any FOSS news that came across my desk this week, so we're going to jump straight to Misfits. And the first one is just kind of a horror story to share with people. Facial recognition error sees woman accused of theft. So Danielle Horan was escorted from branches in Greater Manchester in May and June and initially given no explanation. She later discovered she was falsely accused of stealing about 10 pounds worth of items after her profile was added to a facial recognition watch list to prevent shoplifting. Retail security firm FaceWatch, which provides the technology, said, quote, "We acknowledge and understand how distressing this experience must have been, and the retailer has since undertaken additional staff training," unquote. The firm said a review of the incident later showed the items had been paid for. It was only after repeated emails to both FaceWatch and Home Bargains that she eventually found that there had been an allegation of theft of about 10 pounds worth of toilet rolls on May 8th. Ms. Horan said she checked her bank account to confirm she had indeed paid for the items before FaceWatch eventually responded to say a review of the incident showed she had not stolen anything. She said, quote, "Because I was persistent, I finally got somewhere, but it wasn't easy. It was really stressful. My anxiety was really bad. It really played with my mind, questioning what I'd done for days. I felt anxious and sick. My stomach was turning for a week." Madeline Stone, a senior advocacy officer at the civil liberties campaign group Big Brother Watch, said they had been contacted by more than 35 people who have complained of being wrongly placed on facial recognition watch lists. Quote, "They're given no due process, kicked out of stores. This is having a serious impact. Historically in Britain, we have a history that you are innocent until proven guilty, but when an algorithm, a camera, and a facial recognition system gets involved, you are guilty."
Scammers have hijacked websites of Bank of America, Netflix, Microsoft, and more to insert fake phone numbers. So here's kind of the breakdown here. So cybercriminals pay for a sponsored ad, so similar to other things we've talked about on this podcast, pretending to be a major brand. Often this ad leads people to a fake website. But in the cases we recently found, the visitor is taken to the legitimate site, but with a small difference. Visitors are taken to the help support section, but instead of the genuine phone number, the hijackers display their scammy number instead. So the browser address bar will show that of the legitimate site, and so there's no reason for suspicion, but the information the visitor sees will be misleading because the search results have been poisoned to display the scammer's number prominently in what looks like an official search result. So a technically more correct name for this type of attack would be a search parameter injection attack, because the scammer has crafted a malicious URL that embeds their own fake phone number into the genuine site's legitimate search functionality. These are effective because 1, users see the legitimate Netflix URL in their address bar. 2, the page layout looks authentic. 3, the fake number appears in what looks like a search result, making it seem official. And so this is about to happen because Netflix's search functionality blindly reflects whatever users put in the search query parameter without proper sanitization or validation, which creates a reflected input vulnerability that scammers can exploit. Netflix, however, is just one example, and they mention here that they also found other brands like PayPal, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Bank of America, and HP also being abused with the same exact attack. So some red flags to keep an eye out for is a phone number in the URL. So actually look at the URL address. Also suspicious search terms like call now or emergency support in the address bar of the browser. Look for encoded characters like the parentheses 20 space and parentheses 2b along with phone numbers. The website shows a search result before you entered one. Also urgent language is always a big one.
And those were all our stories this week. So the massive data breach that's probably not new, but I mean, we never want to centralize things and make it easier for the cyber criminals. That's still a bummer that got put out there. How data brokers assisted in some political violence here in the US. Unfortunately, Meta takes more steps to getting worse. Please ditch Facebook, ditch Meta. I know we don't normally tell people just full stop using a service, but I feel like with every passing day, Meta gets less and less redeeming. And many, many other stories. Not a huge week, but still a pretty busy story. And with that, I will let Henry tell you all about Proton Pass.
Yeah, so want to definitely shout out our sponsor of this episode, is Proton Pass. They are an open source password manager. It's what I personally use, and I just love the UI UX. And some of the highlights, they have a hide my email feature, which is integrated with Simple Login. So if you ever have used Simple Login before, it works the same way, except it's integrated directly with your password manager. And it's going to generate a random email address in a user-friendly way so you can keep your real email private and dodge spam and leaks and other not so great things. Some other highlights, it also monitors the dark web for any leaks of your information. It checks the strength of your passwords. There's an integrated TOTP authenticator, and it syncs across all your devices. And it's got a really good extension, and they also have desktop clients as well now. And it's also backed by Proton and everything that they stand for, no VCs, and it's all part of your Proton account. So if you already are using Proton, but you're not using Proton Pass yet, it's a great thing to at least try out to see if it works for you. And the best part is that with our link, proton.me/surveillance support, you'll actually get a small discount. So it's $2.99 a month, pretty darn cheap. And it also is probably the best way to also get Simple Login in addition to a password manager in one place. So that's personally what I do as part of just the broader Proton ecosystem. So thank you again to Proton for sponsoring this video, helping everyone stay a little bit safer and also helping keep this podcast running. And we'll leave that link in the description, and I'll let Nate finish it out.
Thank you guys for listening to Surveillance Report. Links to all of the stories can be found in the show notes. If you have a story that you think we should cover, if we forgot to cover a story or we missed a story, news@surveillancereport.tech. We do read every email. The final thing we want to ask of you, please share the podcast around if you get value out of it. We don't do any kind of advertising or marketing. It's all word of mouth. And we try to find that line between not being too sensational with the headlines, but also still eliciting some curiosity to draw in new viewers. So we kind of have to play the algorithm. But a recommendation from you guys definitely probably means a lot more than the algorithm. Make sure you are subscribed. Give us a rating if you're on a platform where that's an option. We are trying to reach as many people as possible and keep them informed and updated about these issues, and you can help us do that. So thank you again for listening, and we will see you next week.